AI. So before we go any further, please allow me to say a few housekeeping rules. The first one, interpretation is available in English, French, and Portuguese. So please choose the globe icon on your screen and choose the language you prefer to use. Secondly, recordings and PowerPoints will be made available after the presentation, and we'll send you an email with all the resources after this webinar session. Lastly, we have a very interesting lineup today, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions and comments. So feel free to submit your comments and questions in the Q&A box or the chat box. And at the end, we'll have 30 minutes for Q&A and to interact with our speakers. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce Ms. Murphy, our colleague from EU RTIA, to give the opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Camelia. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So good afternoon, everybody joining us from across the continent and around the world. As said, my name is Mervi Hakoniemi. I am the KM specialist of the Regional Teachers Initiative for Africa, which is a European Commission funded initiative for teacher management and professional development. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. As Camelia already mentioned, this is an ongoing series of webinars, and this is actually already the 11th session of the series. And today we will focus on leveraging e-learning for teacher professional development and lifelong learning opportunities, which explores digital transformation of teacher professional development and development of accessible and inclusive platforms for teacher training resources. So as said, this webinar is part of our monthly series, which is already running from the beginning of 2025, so over a year now. And we are delighted to have all of you here, both our long-standing participants as the news members of this growing community. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I would also like to warmly acknowledge and thank the partners who make this series possible. And amongst the partners, we have the RTIA, European Union's Regional Teachers Initiative for Africa, the Global Partnership for Education, Knowledge and Innovation Exchange, which is a joint endeavor with the International Development Research Centre Canada, the Africa Federation of Teaching Regulatory Authorities, the African Union, UNESCO IGBA, which manages this series, the International Center for Higher Education Innovation under the auspices of UNESCO, and then UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education. And we deeply appreciate the ongoing commitment to strengthen the teacher development and to advance digital learning in education. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and let's go ahead with the first session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vervi. So in today's webinar, we'll have a keynote speech, and after that, we have 4 very interesting case studies. So now please allow me to introduce our speaker for the keynote address, which is Dr. Shafika, the Chief of Section for Technology and AI in Education at UNESCO. Dr. Shafika, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Moderator, dear colleagues, dear partners, friends, and perhaps very importantly, dear fellow educators from across the world, it seems, as well as across the continent. You are really the heartbeat of our education systems, and it is always heartwarming to engage with teachers like yourselves. So I'm obviously speaking to you also as a teacher, as a really passionate teacher, as a former teacher educator, a researcher, and a teacher education policymaker. And I was asked to speak about how do we leverage e-learning for teacher professional development. And I thought I would start by just the story of one of my master students with whom I was supervising. Many of my master students, which is encouraging for me, were also teachers. And one of them, let's call her Victoria, she was teaching coding and robotics to grade 4 students in an overcrowded classroom of 65 students. And she has to enter this classroom every single day with a short supply of robotics kits. And at night, she would go home and use her hotspot to access the internet to support her master's study. And in her study, she talks about her journey as a teacher and someone who is committed to lifelong learning. And she tells us in her studies about what is it that motivates her to continue to learn and continue her journey in teacher professional development. And she makes the point that because her journey of teacher professional development is linked to a career progression, she felt that she was constantly motivated by her principal, by her peers. She formed peer communities at the school. They would talk via WhatsApp. They would motivate one another. And she says that all of this for her, despite the difficulty of every day having to face an overcrowded classroom, what got her through the day is that she felt that she was seen. And I thought that that was quite an instructive story for me, because what I wanted to highlight is really 2 aspects around leveraging e-learning for teacher professional development. And it's the aspects that are often not mentioned and not talked about enough when we as a community here in this forum and beyond, when we engage with the issues that lie at the heart of teacher professional learning. The first is related to humanizing the teacher. There is a real person involved when it comes to engaging in teacher professional development. And often we lose sight in our engagement, in our conversations about this real teacher, this real person, and linked to the need for that person to also cultivate a sense of agency. And we talk a lot about cultivating teacher agency. And so I want to invite a conversation around what are the attributes that we consider when we think about humanizing the teacher and cultivating teacher agency in the use of technologies when we embark on teacher professional development. That is the first aspect that I wanted to just surface for conversation. The second relates to our need, especially related to technologies and teacher professional development, that we look at the evidence base for the decisions and the designs of large-scale teacher professional development program, because we recognize that our evidence base is so limited. But the good news is there is some evidence emerging that helps us with more deeper analysis on how to design more effective programs. And this is important because we often hear the story of doom and gloom when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa and our teaching community. In sub-Saharan Africa, we are often told about the staggering paradox that we confront, that we have the average classrooms are overflowing, that there are teacher-student ratios of 1:60, sometimes 1:100 learners, that we face a significant deficit, a phenomenal shortage of 15 million teachers on our continent that are needed by 2030. But we also know that amidst all the deficits speak, there are what one minister from the UAE actually calls, and it's always stayed with me, she calls it quiet revolutions, that amidst all the crisis, we know that there are quiet revolutions about how teachers, in their daily lives as teachers and in their quest to become better teachers, are performing these quiet revolutions and making a difference in the lives of themselves, their peers, and also of their students. And so many of our e-learning programs, when we design them, we tend to focus more on the technology on the tool and less on the teacher in context. And so at UNESCO, we have long advocated that the technology is not a fix for a broken system. And for too long, we have treated the teacher as a functionary for just delivering a delivery mechanism for the curriculum. And so many of our forums and commitments that we make as UNESCO, the most recent of which is the Santiago Consensus, which was adopted at the World Teacher Summit, as well as the World Teacher Summit was held late last year. And we've also produced a 2024 Global Teachers Report, where we highlight the importance of education as a human and humane dialogue, and that if we are going to transform education, we must first focus on recognizing the teacher as a person worthy of being seen, of being heard, of being trusted as a lifelong learner. And I think I would like to invite a conversation about how do we ensure that we create a culture of visibility for the teacher and the teacher's agency in our approach to e-learning and teacher professional development, because we often lose sight of that. The second relates to the principle of building the evidence base in the context of there not being enough evidence. I have just done a little bit of digging also in my role because we are advocating for evidence-informed design of teacher professional development. I've been excited to see that there is emerging evidence. And yes, there's lots of debate about what defines evidence because some studies, the evidence methodology is questionable, and that's another conversation. But some of the emerging evidence is showing that technology, teacher professional development programs that is focused around teacher agency and cultivating teacher agency tends to be better placed in terms of being effective in leveraging a wide range of technologies to support a teacher professional development. So some of the good examples that I've picked up, and in ICPA, who is our partner at the IITE, at UNESCO IITE, and as UNESCO also has a number of examples. But for example, I've discovered that in Tanzania, there is a project called Mafunzo Endelevu ya Walimu Kazini. And for short, it's called MEWAKA. Some of you may know it, and I invite a conversation about this. But their research from 2025 has shown that there is a link to improve teacher performance when the e-learning is linked to formal career progression, and teachers are therefore more motivated and incentivized to engage in e-learning programs when there is this very conscious link to formal career progression. And so what I've certainly picked up from that study, and we can share the links, that the quality of teacher professional development using a range of technologies and multiple delivery modalities that is focused on building communities of learning, professional learning communities that also integrates coaching, mentorship, hand-holding. They tend to encourage self-learning, and also they tend to encourage teacher agency because of the tendency to invite a sense of community, a sense of shared learning, where the teacher also feels that they are being seen. And I think that that is very, very instructive in the context of that theme. And again, for me, it's an invitation to a conversation around whether that is also your experience and what the implications are in ensuring that teachers are more visible than the emphasis on the technology, that teacher community formation, human teachers forming communities of practice and communities of learning is far more relevant than the focus just on the technologies. And that was the one study that comes to mind. I'm aware that my time is running out, but there were a few examples also from using so-called low-end technologies like WhatsApp, and I know that ICPA and a number of organizations have examples as well, and some of you may too, about how WhatsApp has also serviced us in terms of the formation of virtual communities of practice. The emphasis again is the cultivation of teacher agency, teacher individual and collective agency, using WhatsApp as a platform in community formation and learning together as part of a collective teacher professional learning trajectory. And I thought that that too was instructive. There are quite a number of studies that are coming on stream that are demonstrating the evidence of that kind of approach towards focusing on teacher agency, focusing on the human teacher, building community, forming communities of learning where there's mutual support and where there is visibility and recognition of being a person as a teacher is quite important. We are also seeing, and people have asked me to speak a little bit about AI, that there's not much evidence-based research on the role of AI in cultivating teacher agency, in teacher professional development. There are a few projects emerging. There's 1 or 2 evidence-based studies, but I'm also aware that many have challenged the limited evidence that's available by questioning the methodology behind some of these evidence-based studies. So I don't want to make any pronouncements that, using AI for lifelong learning in teacher professional development is working. And all I can do is say that we need more evidence and we need to focus more on the teacher. Excuse me, I just need to drink a little bit of water. So that was just an important point. And so in other words, pardon me, the evidence matters, and our invitation to all of us is to collectively build that evidence and also question our evidence-based methodologies that focus on teacher agency. So as UNESCO and the UNESCO family, through Aichi, through ICBA, through IITE, in partnership with GPE, KICS Africa, and the European Union, and many of our partners, our call is for what we are focusing attention on in the forthcoming 2026 Global Report on Teachers. And that focus is on teacher professional development with or without technologies as a lifelong learning endeavor. Many of the reports and frameworks that we've developed as UNESCO, from the AI competency framework for teachers, the ICT competency framework for teachers, have made a very loud clarion call that we need to invest in the humanity of being a teacher, that we believe that teachers are an appreciative asset compared to technologies, that the minute we start using a technology, it is a depreciating asset. And so our call is to invest more in the teacher agency dimension, in the humane dimension, in the recognition and recognitive agency aspects of the teacher in the use of technologies. When we consider leveraging e-learning platforms, whether it is AI, whether it is WhatsApp, whether it is the radio, whether it is television, in support of teacher professional learning. We believe that when we see the teacher and when we cultivate the visibility of the teacher as a human being before the technologies, the teacher is then able to see the child. And when the child is seen, when the students are seen, that is when our continent and the education system will rise. And I wanted to leave you with those few words as just food for thought to open up the conversation and reframe and refocus the conversation around human agency, around teacher agency in relationship to technologies, especially in an age where our machine-based systems are becoming increasingly dominant. So we are battling with machine logics relative to human logics. And our interest as UNESCO is to cultivate the human, the humane, the human teacher, and human teacher agency. I'm going to leave you with those words. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shafika. This is very nicely said. I love that how we're focusing on humans in this tech era and how we can combine the forces to ameliorate our education system. And also, as you mentioned about the Tanzania case study, indeed, we do have a speaker who will tell us more about the Tanzania case, as well as Nigeria and Ghana. So now, without further ado, please allow me to invite Dr. Christian Adaipoku, the Registrar for the National Teaching Council of Ghana, to tell us how e-learning has been transforming education in Ghana. Dr. Christian.
Yeah, thank you very much, Camilla. I'm trying to share my screen and then I'll proceed from there.
Perfect. We can see it now. Perfect. Can you put it on presenter mode?
All right. So in Ghana here is good afternoon. So good afternoon to all participants. As indicated, my name is Christian Adaipoku from the National Teaching Council of Ghana. I'm the registrar and I'm also the Deputy President of Africa Federation of Teaching Regulatory Authorities. Today, my presentation is a story of how Ghana has been pursuing electronic learning for teacher CPD. Before 2020, Ghana was pursuing some intermittent electronic learning of different forms, but after COVID struck, it became very, very important to aggressively pursue digital learning. And so we realized that at that time, the in-person and the traditional CPD programs that we were organizing became very dangerous because of COVID. And two, we realized it was too expensive. And three, it was also because we could not cover a large number of people at a time. And so it became very pertinent that NTC took the matter up and to come out with new solutions that will help cover a lot of teachers without much risk exposure to the pandemic at the time. So we piloted a CPD at scale program. And then after the piloting, we decided to scale up. But the main purpose was to make sure that teachers are equipped with the skills to manage 21st century classroom and to be able to administer content based on 21st century pedagogy. So this is how the features of the e-learning platform. In fact, we had two different forms. We had both the synchronous and the asynchronous platforms. But in this presentation, I will focus much on the asynchronous one, where teachers have their own time to study and upgrade their skills. But from time to time, I'll bring on board the synchronous part. So we created a teacher learning platform. And so that platform has a centralized hub, a single location for all professional teachers to go and learn something. Then on that platform, we also had a user dashboard for individual teachers, where the teachers go and check their records in terms of progression, CPD points, how they are progressing in terms of CPD. Then we also made sure that we created an offline access for the platform, such that areas that are hard to reach in terms of technology, internet, and so on, could still be able to access CPD. So we provided both online and offline access. And then to make it easy for a lot of teachers, because now almost every teacher has a a smartphone, we made sure that we had a smartphone optimization on the platform to enable teachers not to only use their laptops, but also to be able to use their smartphones. Then how the courses were developed, we had to collaborate with various stakeholders. First, with the Ghana Education Service, which is the employer of teachers in Ghana. We collaborated with the UNESCO. We collaborated with the various universities in Ghana. And then we also had CPD service providers, private CPD service providers who are experts in various subject areas and pedagogies. All of these people came together to develop various contents for the platforms. Most of the content were based on pedagogy and subject mastery. So both subject or content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge. So these were the areas. However, there was so much emphasis on ICT integration in teaching and learning. So teachers, even as we speak, we continue to train teachers to make them get mastery of how to integrate ICT into teaching and learning. So it's part of the content that teachers are being exposed to on the learning management systems that we have created. Then we have interactive content to make sure that teachers do not stay bored on the platforms. We made sure that there are quizzes from time to time to test people and to keep people awake. We also had videos. We also have videos on the platforms that enable people interact and to stay active. Case studies that are interesting to keep people active. This is how the framework looks like. As I indicated, there's always partnership, because partnership is so important. Teacher unions, development partners, various agencies within education, like the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, the Ghana Education Service, National Teaching Council, National Inspectorate Authority, and so on. All these partners are brought on board to make sure that the content that we are developing will meet the needs of teachers. Then the mode of delivery is a blended approach. Even when we use in person, there's always e-learning platform available to them, making sure that teachers stay in clusters, they watch videos. Sometimes we create synchronous platforms like Zoom links and so on for teachers, so that there will be a central position for delivery of the content and all teachers access the same content, making sure that there is not so much deviation from what is supposed to be learned. Previously, we were using cascading approach. We train people from the top, and then they will go and train, and they will go and train. By the time it gets to the rare users, you see that the content might have changed drastically. So staying on point at one location and delivering content to all teachers across the country, about 450,000 teachers at the same time using synchronous means, also helped a lot. Then we have the way of also motivating the teachers to make sure that their interest is sustained. Apart from the teachers getting the knowledge they need, we made sure that the teachers get what we call CPD credit, or others will call CPD points. As in, when you interact with the system, when you are successful in your study, the teacher is credited with some points. And these points eventually account for the teacher's renewal of registration and license, as well as teachers' promotion. And then we also have virtual mentorship, where we have other experts, mentors on standby to support teachers when they are interacting with the various platforms. If the teacher encounters any problem, there is a mentor within a specific cluster that person can contact for support, either through email, through WhatsApp, or through calls and so on, so that teachers can understand and will be able to use what they learn from the platform. So the content that we place on the platform, the Synchronous platform. We have books there. We have PowerPoint presentations that have been prepared already and placed there. We have videos, sometimes podcasts. You have PDFs, among other things that we place on the platform so that the teachers are not denied of varieties to choose from at any point in time. This is the architecture of the asynchronous platform, the learning management system. And so on the learning management system, we have the system itself staying here where contents are loaded. Then we have these two things here that you see indicate offline and online access to the platforms. So the teachers go onto the platform at their own leisure to study. And as they study, if they have any issues, there are training support systems that is for DTSTs, that is a district teacher support people there. We have school improvement support officers also there. And then we have training officers who provide mentoring and coaching for the teachers. Then we have the classroom itself, how the system is applied. The teacher is supposed to apply what he or she learns in the classroom. They do reflective practice, either as individuals or in a group. We created Telegram platform, we created WhatsApp platforms for different cluster of teachers where they can go and interact with the system from time to time. So the system also provides feedback on the teacher learning and introduces an award recognition approach to what we call the 5WH. So the 5WH, we're talking about who the teacher is. The system should be able to identify who the teacher is. The system should be able to tell us what the teacher is learning, when the teacher is learning, what the teacher is using to learn, that is the gadget the teacher is using to learn, what message the teacher is sending to colleagues as their contribution towards individual learning. That is when they are on the WhatsApp platforms and the Telegram platforms discussing some of the things they have learned. And then how long does a teacher stay on the learning platform? These are all things that the system is able to tell us. So some of the gadgets that teachers are able to use to access the platform are laptops, desktop, tablets, smartphones. And then you can also log on to this link that I have provided here, and you'll be able to access some of the content on the NTC Learning Management System. Some of the challenges that we have seen in implementing this system are, one, we are talking about the digital gap that we see. And in the digital gap, these are the areas that we have seen as the challenges they face. The first is the internet gap. A lot of the areas that are not covered by internet, about 20% of the country, we need to find a way to deal with that. Then you have the digital literacy problem. Most of the teachers are digital immigrants. So they were born before computers, and it is now that we are helping them to be able to get abreast of digitization. Then we have device access. Some people may not have devices to be able to access the content. Indeed, in Ghana, the government of Ghana has provided laptops for every teacher to be able to access content and to support him or her in his lesson delivery. However, we are unable to tell whether every teacher is able to use that machine and whether all of them still have their machines with them. And so it's still a challenge. So when we go around, we still see some teachers who do not have the appropriate gadgets to access the system. Then sustainability of the platform is costly to maintain the platform. Initially, the platform was supported by World Bank, Commonwealth of Learning, and KIX. These are the institutions that supported us to build the platforms. But their support had a limited time, and within that time, we were very effective. When they left us to scale up on our own, sometimes it's very difficult because it's costly maintaining these platforms. So in developing the platform, these were some of the things we took into consideration, making sure that the system that we were building at the time is we are able to scale it up. Initially, it was just a pilot thing, but we should be able to scale it up so that every teacher in the country will be able to access them, because there are different platforms that we have created. Then analytics, also making sure that we have analytics on the platform to be able to give us information about how teachers are using the platform. In fact, the system is such that if you are online, the system is able to tell us whether you are concentrating or not, because if your eye movement is off the screen, the system is able to tell you that for this number of minutes, your eyes were not on the screen. And in these days, people can switch on systems and then go and do other things. But if you are not seated behind your gadget and we are not seeing eye movement and so on, the system is able to detect that. What you are learning is known, and we have assessment programs also on the system that from time to time will track teachers' performance. And then we made sure that there is expanded access to the system, as I indicated already, including offline access. And then making sure that the system that we have developed will be less costly to use compared to the traditional system that we were operating at the time. And it is true, even though hosting is costly, it is nowhere comparable to bringing teachers to a point and training them, because you pay the teachers TNT, you pay DSA and so on, feed them and so on and so forth. It's so expensive. But if it is the e-learning platform, very little is spent. And so we had this in mind when we were developing the platform. So in a nutshell, what we try to say is that e-learning helps to improve learning outcomes. In fact, I must confess that we have not been able to do a countrywide assessment to see how effective the system has been thus far. We have currently commissioned a team that is working on that. When they come out with their findings, it will help us. But as at now, based on literature that we have reviewed over the years and what we have seen, impressionistic views that we have, we believe that the system is working well and is helping to improve learning. And this is in conformity with SDG 4 and also in conformity with Ghana's education strategic plan. When we did the piloting in terms of coverage, we realized that of the areas that we selected, about 5,000 teachers were reached during the pilot phase. And out of that 5,000 that was reached, we realized that about 85% were able to complete their online learning or e-learning using the e-learning platform. Content that they were accessing, they were able to complete. And they were we did assessment for them, and most of them were successful in the assessment, were issued certificates, and were given the appropriate CPD credits. So information that we have for government is that based on the piloting, we detected that there was the need at the time for government to subsidize data and to provide devices for teachers. In fact, government of Ghana started a project of providing internet access to all schools in Ghana. They are still on it. It is not complete, but it's in progress, and most of the schools in Ghana are now covered, especially in the second cycle schools. Then, as I indicated already, laptops have been shared to all teachers to be able to enable them use their gadgets to access e-learning. Strengthening technical support. I have indicated already that we have technical support and mentors who support the teachers. At the time that we finished the piloting, we realized that there was the need for us to strengthen this one. And that is the work of the National Teaching Council to do, which we have started working on, making sure that we provide enough mentors to support the teachers. You know, if the teacher goes online and technically has a challenge, that challenge alone can be off-putting that the teacher may not go back there. But if there are people handy to support them, making sure that whatever challenge they face, they support them to scale those challenges, then it will keep them steady. So we also made sure that we introduced a mandatory digital literacy training for all teachers in Ghana. It is based on this that teachers will be able to access e-learning platforms. And so digital learning is one of the mandatory courses on the platforms that teachers are supposed to take. And during PLCs and national CPDs, we emphasize these things very much. Then continuous research to keep the content globally relevant. As I indicated, in fact, we do baseline assessment from time to time to determine the areas that CPDs are needed. But beyond that, we also need to do a lot of studies to ascertain whether the platforms we are using, the means we are using to deliver CPDs are yielding results. So that is what we have commissioned a team to work on. Results are not yet in, so I'm unable to share that now. So this is the journey for Ghana's digital or e-learning journey. Starting from the traditional system, the National Teaching Council setting the foundation for a strong digital platform, and then adoption of e-learning vehicle. In fact, as we speak right now, we have what we call the National CPD Day that is run for all teachers across the country within the same day at the same time based on a specific topic. Last year, we did on mental health and psychosocial well-being, and we have a platform we call Cartoon Meet, also leveraging sometimes Zoom and Google Meet to support. And we deliver the content from the national level to all teachers across the country. We do a lot of collaboration with other service providers, development partners, non-governmental organizations that are into teaching and learning. We work with all of them to make sure that content that we produce will meet standards. Then the system is so flexible that apart from those that are synchronous, the others, the teachers at his own leisure will be able to assess and then make sure that it is impactful.
Sorry, Dr. Christian, can you wrap up in 1 minute?
Okay, thank you very much. So these, what I've put here, some of the challenges with synchronous and asynchronous processes that we have in the country, but I will not be able to go into details. So in a nutshell, what I want to say is that Ghana has been using the e-learning platforms of various types to make sure that teachers learn. And gradually we are moving away from in-person trainings for teachers because it's very, very costly. And if by the time the study comes out, if it's able to confirm our impressionistic view, then it means we will be able to scale up even more for teacher CPD in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christian, for explaining to us how the asynchronous system works in Ghana. Now, please allow me to introduce our next speaker, Professor Muazu from Nigeria, as the director of the Distance Learning Center of ABU. Professor Muazu, the floor is yours. Also, don't forget to drop your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, as we do have a Q&A session after all the presentations. Thank you. Professor Mwazu?
Okay, good afternoon, and it's a pleasure speaking to you from Nigeria. And I'm going to talk about how the IOE Nigeria National Center supports digital transformation in Nigeria. So we'll go from mandate to measurable national impact. And so this is the flow of the presentation. And we'll start by just creating the scenario, just to look at what we have on the ground and see why it became important to have partnerships like that with the UNESCO International Center for Higher Education Innovation, under whose auspices the International Institute of Online Education operates. So basically in Nigeria today, we have over around 777 higher education institutions spread across 309 universities, 208 polytechnics, and 260 colleges of education. All these are in the higher education ecosystem. However, and then we have over 2.8 million students enrolled in these higher education institutions. And so these numbers may look bit impressive, but there are fundamental challenges within that higher education ecosystem, which will include infrastructural deficiencies, connectivity issues, so whether it's at the network bandwidth level or at the edge bandwidth level. And then we have an educator workforce that is largely ill-equipped or under-equipped for the realities and demands of digital and AI age teaching. But that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is we have a lot of these policies that will govern digital or e-learning or digital technologies being implemented in education institutions in Nigeria. But the fundamental issue goes back to institutional level implementation. That's where we have serious challenges. It's not lack of policies to see this through. And then it's on the basis of this, looking at this scenario, that led the UNESCO ICHE to establish the International Institute of Online Education in 2019. And then just to get some context, in order for us to have maybe some understanding of the issue of digital transformation, we go to the research report that was commissioned by the UNESCO International Center for Higher Education Innovation, titled Digital Transformation of Higher Education in Sub-Saharan Africa. And the report, you can see the report online, or if you have access to this presentation, you can click on that link there, it take you to the report. And so in that report, digital transformation is defined as the full integration of these emerging technologies and their tools into the core of higher education functions, such as teaching and learning, administration and management, and then research and innovation. And in conclusion of that report, they made some recommendations as to issues that policymakers need to focus on if we're supposed to have a successful transformation of higher education in sub-Saharan Africa. And those issues include regulatory framework, infrastructure and devices, technical capacity, and educational resources. And as you see, if we go forward, this forms the basis of the relationship between the International Institute of Online Education and the Nigerian National Center. So essentially, the International Institute of Online Education operates under the UNESCO International Center for Higher Education Innovation, and there are 40 national centers worldwide. In Nigeria, the Nigerian National Center of the IOE is hosted at Ahmadu Bello University. We became a pioneer partner of the International Institute of Online Education. Out of the 11 higher education institutions in the world that were the pioneer institutions that established the IOE in December 2019. and we were upgraded to a national center in April 2022. So the overall mandate of the IOE, which streams down to the national centers, is principally about high education in faculty capacity building, and then policy advisory and micro certification designs and deployment, and then infrastructural support, and then very importantly, as an implementation of the possibilities that can arise from the South-South collaboration, especially in this case, the Belt and Road Initiative. So now between 2019 and 2025, or indeed 2026, since the lifespan of this relationship between the UNESCO International Center of Education Innovation and the IOE Nigeria National Center, we've been able to build capacities in terms of digital pedagogy, in terms of micro certification, in terms of immersive training, in terms of infrastructural support, and in terms of pushing for policy and advocacy. As of today, the Nigerian National Center has 20 partner institutions. As we'll see here, these are the 20 partner institutions currently in Nigeria, spread across private and public and state universities in Nigeria. So far, in numbers, so far since over this period, we've been able to train close to 7,000 higher education student teachers in terms of professional development in areas such as use of collaborative tools, use of productivity tools, AI, and digital course design, development, and production. And we have over 4,000, close to 5,000 teachers and students have made effective use of the ABU CreateView Smart Classroom. This is a smart classroom donated by a triumvirate of like the UNESCO ICHE, Southern University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen, and CreateView Technologies, which is now Dazzle View, donated the smart classroom. We've also had close to 300 students that have made use of the virtual reality applications. Now we have also moved to having the virtual reality desktop. So these numbers are going to increase, but we've had this number of students, and we've had over 150 software licenses that have been granted to us as part of partnership with KMAX and UNESCO ICHE. So in one of those areas that we've also worked with the IOE is in terms of micro certification programs. So we've had over 269 staff on our network that have enrolled in those micro certification courses, and 73 have completed those courses, and we've co-developed 2 of those micro courses on the IOE platform together with IOE. So and that's the course is A3, which is design and produce presentations, and course T1, which is collaborative instructional research for online and offline integration. And then we were also the first IOE National Center to fully domesticate one of those micro certification courses developed by the IOE. And that's the feedback we got, that ABU is the first IOE partner who has completed the whole phase of localized implementation of any of those micro certification courses. And so these are the ones you can access them on the IOE platform, those 2 courses, A3 and T1, and we are also in the process of producing A5 course. So on the micro certification, and it's glad to know that even the government of Nigeria has now initiated the process of formalizing the micro credentials. So they will now be dates. So when eventually the policy comes out, it's possible for some of these micro certifications to become credit weight, so people can actually do some of those micro certifications and earn credit that they can use in higher education institutions. But I think the discussions started sometimes last month in Abuja, the Nigerian capital. So, but then like I also mentioned, we've also involved in virtual reality, immersive training. And so now we have integrated with reality applications that we have. So these are some of the courses. And when we got the latest set of from KMAX, we went to some of our partner institutions who showed interest in having those licenses. So we given Federal University of Transportation Summit University offer University of Abuja those licenses that were fit for some of those courses in automotive engineering. Anatomy. And so we look for rising of immersive training using virtual reality, and we're grateful for the support from KMAX. So this is the desktop that we've KMAX, and this comes inbuilt with 20 licenses. So we're now moving on to moving from using the software to demonstrate virtual reality applications to now using the hardware. And so essentially, in terms of infrastructural deployment support, we've been able to have, as part of that relationship, the ABU CredView Smart Classroom, the VR lab, and then a professional recording studio where we can now record content, because initially that's one of those things that we could do in the Smart Classroom, but over a period of time, we realized the usage of the Smart Classroom required us to have a specialized recording studio. And then we're also now developing the IOE Specialist Library, where all those IOE library sources will be domesticated there for the use of teachers within the university and within and from the partner institutions. In terms of policy and advocacy, when we started, the drive was towards digital literacy. So we're focused on ensuring that we have institutionalized policies that will guarantee that transformation of teaching and learning from the traditional way to the digital format. And so when the first national project that we hosted in collaboration with the UNESCO ICHE was on empowering institutional policy for digital teaching and learning in Nigeria. And the outcome of that workshop in November 2022 was the development of the teaching and learning policy of ABU Zaria together with its implementation plan. From 2023-24, we started to gravitate towards AI policy framework. The understanding is we're getting into a period in which AI is becoming inevitable, but it's important that before we go into adoption, we need to understand those risks associated with it. So it was important to see we develop those. We have a framework that sets the guidelines for the use, ethical and responsible use of AI before we go into full adoption of AI. So in 2024, we organized a national dialogue on consensus framework towards a policy roadmap for Nigerian higher education in the age of AI. In Abuja on July 18, 2024, we hosted that national dialogue we had representation from the Federal Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Communication, the National Communication Commission, all the regulatory boards for higher education in Nigeria, the National University Commission, the Board for Technical Education, and the Commission for Colleges of Education. We had academia from all the higher education institutions in Nigeria, spread across those polytechnics, universities, and colleges of education. And we had representation from UNESCO, from industry, Galaxy Backbone, Huawei Technologies, National Center for Air and Owando Energy Resources, and several others. And so this like a montage of some of the participants at the national dialogue. And then we had a draft framework which was submitted to the Federal Ministry of Education and the National Universities Commission, and that formed the basis of from a fundamental resource for the team that was eventually set up by the National Universities Commission, which came out with a draft report tagged Responsible AI Integration in the Nigerian University System, which was released in October 2025, and it's still supposed to be gathering feedback from the university system in Nigeria before it becomes fully adopted. So we've also, in order to foster inclusiveness and to get everybody involved in the digital transformation, the UNESCO ICHE is running a project from 2025 to 2027 on tagged Women Leading Change in Africa project, and is in Nigeria, is being hosted by the Nigerian National Center. The whole idea of this project is to strengthen gender inclusion in AI leadership and capacity building amongst female faculty in African higher education institutions. The target we have is by the end of 2025, we should have had 1,500 participants with a minimum of 500 women. And by 2027, we should have engaged with 4,500 participants under this project with a minimum of 1,500 women participating. So far, we've gotten, this is just first quarter of 2026, but we've attained a target of 2,338, and out of which we have already 1,108 females that have participated in the various activities of the project. So some of the things that some of the recommendations from what this our journey for the past 6 years is the fact that digital transformation needs to be institutionalized. It doesn't need to be like a project. And that's one of the beauties of this relationship we have with the UNESCO ICHE. It's not a project. It's not coming to build a smart classroom. It's a partnership that outlives any kind of project. And then most importantly, it should have some institutional support in order for it to succeed. We've also realized that in order for us to be able to have a proper and useful adoption or domestication of AI, we need to develop our fit-for-purpose ethical frameworks. We do not need to take line, hook, and sinker some of these frameworks or guidelines that are generated outside of our region, because some of the context may not relate to our realities. And then it's also important that and that's why I said it's very important that NUC has taken it upon itself to institutionalize micro credentials. It's very important in order for us to have a scalable professional development program for higher education teachers. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's important for us to leverage on this South-South collaboration, especially in our case, the Belt and Road Initiative. So lessons we've learned is just in line with some of those recommendations we've made, is that we have to be able to embed capacity building as an institutional policy and not just like a project or something that we do once in a while.
Professor
We need to be able
Muazu,
to.
can you wrap up in 1 minute, please? Yeah.
Okay, so and then importantly, we need to be able to ensure that we have ethics in place before we start to think of adoption of AI. And then in conclusion, part of all the projects we've done over the past 6 years with the IOE has led us to having won two of the first two award ceremonies of the UNESCO Aiche Pioneer Case Award. We won for our implementation policy, and we won for the national dialogue that we held in 2023 and 2025. Those Pioneer Case Awards are won by the Nigerian National Center. So thank you, and it's a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much, Professor Muazu, and sorry that I had to rush you. But I just saw in the chat there's a question about the e-learning platform in Tanzania, and our next speaker, Mr. Salim Kumar, will gonna present to us the case study of Tanzania. Yes, the floor is yours, Salim.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Nice to see so many of you here today. My name's Salim Kumar. I'm a research lead at EdTech Hub based in the UK, originally from Mauritius, and a former teacher as well. So it's nice to see so many teachers as well on the call today. I'll be speaking today about EdTech Hub's work on teacher professional development and kind of globally, but also providing a case study of our work in Tanzania as well. So to start off, if for those of you that haven't heard of EdTech Hub, our overall goal is to improve the evidence to support decision making on using technology within education. And our broader vision is to improve learning outcomes for all children in low and middle income countries. And we have a specific focus on the effectiveness, on equity, cost effectiveness, and also scalability of EdTech, of education technology. And within that, of course, teachers are pivotal. So we have kind of 5 main focus areas around building evidence on the use of technology to support personalized learning for students, sort of messaging approaches to sort of things like nudges to support teachers and students and education administrators. As I mentioned before, we have a big focus on equity and gender and the use of technology to kind of bridge the gender divides that we often see, and also around the use of technology to enhance data-driven decision making. But today, as I mentioned, I'll be specifically focusing on this first focus area, which is using technology to improve learning through teacher professional development, or TPD. And we have an integrated approach, which is this diagram on the right here, where we combine research, innovation, and technical assistance to sort of bridge the gap between evidence generation and then evidence uptake. So ultimately, how the evidence that we build through research and innovation is then used in practice by ministries of education. So, as I said, I'll start off setting a scene, providing some examples of global evidence on the use of technology for TPD. And we've heard about this in some of the other presentations today as well. Some traditional approaches to teacher professional development have not really worked. However, we know that teaching quality is the most important determinant of learning outcomes at the school level. However, in many countries, teachers are in short supply, they are isolated, and they're not supported to provide effective teaching and learning. And historically, in relation to TPD, we've seen that there's been top-down approaches which have neglected teachers' needs, teachers' voices, and their practical realities in their schools and classrooms. We've seen that these approaches, which often relate to sort of centralized workshops, bringing lots of teachers together in one place, they're very costly, and there's diluted effects of this cascade model that we've heard about as well in the Ghana case. And it's inflexible and slow to adjust and adapt, especially in relation to new curricula, content, etc. However, we do know that technology can help and support in starting to address some of these issues with historical approaches to TPD. First of all, we've seen smart devices, so mobile phones and tablets. They can help with provision of access to teaching and learning materials, such as structured pedagogy materials for teachers. We've seen that social media and messaging, apps such as WhatsApp can be a really powerful tool to connect teachers and promote remote communities of practice. And we see the use of WhatsApp be really effective across multiple contexts. Blended and distance learning, so the use of digital platforms to house learning content, and I'll be speaking more about that later on during the Tanzania case study. And then video is absolutely an incredibly powerful tool to support modeling and reflection, to actually show micro teaching examples through video. And then we've seen subject-specific software and open educational resources, or OER, also be really helpful for teachers to create, adapt, translate, and reuse their own content. And now digging deep then into our case study today of the Tanzania context, and of course, Dr. Shafika in the keynote, she did mention MOWACA, which is the Teacher Continuous Professional Development, as it's translated from Swahili. It is a national TPD program. It's government-led by the government of Tanzania. It operates at national scale. It's the first decentralized model, and it's blended as well. So there's in-person learning components, and there's a learning management system. So there's users of technology and also in-person learning. The learning management system, or the LMS, is supported through a Moodle based platform, and it operates at the primary level, so it supports primary teachers. However, there have been recent extensions to pre-primary and secondary levels too. On the left here, you just see a diagram of how the MOWACA program works. So you have school-based communities of learning, or COLs. That's where teachers meet to discuss pedagogical issues, troubleshooting issues together. These communities of learning are peer facilitated, so facilitated by another teacher within the school. And then there are also cluster level COLs, so where groups of teachers are then brought together from different schools to meet and discuss practice. And they might be subject-specific clusters, they might be clusters related to specific needs, so teachers with disabilities, etc. And so EdTech Hub's work in MOWACA to date. So we've been collaborating closely with the government of Tanzania, in particular the Tanzania Institute for Education and the Prime Minister's Office for regional and local government, over a number of years now. Initially, and this is our integrated approach in practice. Initially, we supported the government through technical assistance to develop the MOACA plans and ensure that those plans were informed by the best evidence that existed around effective technology-supported teacher professional development. We then did some initial innovation, so we call them sandboxes at EdTech Hub, where we tested teachers' sort of initial reflections on use of the LMS. We then did more in-depth implementation research and then participatory research to really dig deep and understand teachers' experiences of MOACA, so both the in-person communities of learning and the learning management system and how it all fitted together. And yeah, we gathered some really rich insights there in relation to equity, so related to specific marginalized teacher groups, so female teachers, teachers with disabilities, which I've seen a few of you have been asking questions on today, and also rural teachers as well. So all of our sample schools were in rural areas, and that's offered some insights which have been taken on board by the government of Tanzania to sort of scale up and inform the overall MOACA implementation at the national level. And we're currently conducting some research and technical assistance on testing and iteratively improving the LMS for those peer facilitators that I mentioned previously. So through our work so far, and through the government's efforts to implement MOACA, what exists already is zero rating, and so again, I've seen zero rating mentioned today already, but just to explain briefly for those who haven't heard of it before, zero rating is where mobile network operators make access to a specific website free at the point of use. So the LMS has been made free for teachers to use by one mobile network operator. That's why there's an asterisk there. So it's available freely for anyone who has a Vodacom SIM card in Tanzania. However, there is a challenge there because there isn't national coverage of the Vodacom network. So ultimately, the fully scalable solution is when every mobile network operator can make the LMS zero rated. As I've mentioned, there is a national policy and framework around TCPD in Tanzania. There's also a recent ICT digital competency framework for teachers. The LMS with a data analytics dashboard, which I'll touch on a little later. There's high quality materials on the LMS, and they range from community of learning modules to support those teacher group meetings within schools. And those core modules can range from sort of pedagogical topics, so topics like managing large class sizes or inclusive pedagogies, to subject-specific content, so things like phonics. And then there's education level specific topics as well, so such as pre-primary modules. And then finally, there's an LMS app which teachers can download so they can access the Moodle-based platform offline. And so on the right, you'll see some challenges that we've identified within our research so far. So there's an issue around equitable internet access. So I mentioned zero rating is not nationwide in terms of network coverage. And so for those areas where teachers don't have access to a Vodacom SIM card or network, there's a challenge. And then, of course, in some areas of Tanzania with no network coverage at all, it becomes really hard for those teachers to access the LMS. There's also an issue around the availability of quality devices. The government of Tanzania did distribute tablets to all teachers in 2022, but there have been some issues around that distribution in terms of those tablets um, being effective to view all of the rich content on the LMS, such as videos. And then some of those tablets have broken down or become lost over time. There's also a point around digital skills of teachers. Yeah, really, there needs to be a baseline level of digital literacy so that teachers can effectively navigate and utilize the LMS. We've identified some particular issues around inclusivity. So some teachers with special needs and or disabilities may not be able to effectively access community of learning modules or indeed participate in the school-based communities of learning effectively. And we also found that female teachers have participated less in communities of learning than their male counterparts when we observe some of those COL sessions. Um, and with regards to school-based peer facilitation, we've seen that some peer facilitators have lacked the skills to really effectively lead communities of learning. Some of those communities of learning, though they are designed to be dialogic and activity-based and use lots of group work, etc., some of them have diverted to more lecture-based classroom teaching methods. And finally, there's a challenge around the technical capacity within government to manage the LMS and its respective updates effectively.
Thank you.
Um,
Salim, can you wrap up in 3 minutes, please?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Camelia. So, what are we doing to address these gaps in relation to inequitable internet access? We're testing local servers known as Raspberry Pis as a last mile solution in schools with no power or connectivity. And also, we're testing this zero rating to support wider accessibility of the LMS. In relation to digital skills, we're delivering and testing basic LMS usage training to a sample of schools. Um, in relation to inclusive content, we are focusing on the middle tier, so ward and district and regional education offices and how they can support school-based communities of learning. In relation to the effective facilitation of communities of learning, we are working specifically with peer facilitators, and we've developed content for peer facilitators to improve that facilitation. And then we've been working hard with the government to kind of coordinate MOACA overall. So the key features of the LMS, it is mobile first and optimized for use on smartphones and tablets. It is available in Swahili, which is very important, of course, for the Tanzanian context. It is available offline through the app that I mentioned earlier, and teachers can use their phone numbers to log in, which is very important because we found lots of teachers didn't have emails to use that as a username. And then I mentioned the role-specific resources. So there's resources for teachers and also for peer facilitators to help their particular role within MOACA overall. That's just an image of the data dashboard, which gives us analytics that can help guide decision making around MOACA implementation, which regions are implementing effectively versus others. And then some key successes of our work on the LMS. So it is agile in terms of the methodology, in terms of iteratively testing and improving the content. As I mentioned, it's government owned, and so all the content is developed and approved by government. It is user focused, and we've done lots of user research and testing to iteratively improve the platform. I mentioned it's accessible offline. And sustainable in relation to it being enabled by GitHub and a usability acceptance testing server. And it's evidence-based. As I mentioned, there's lots of research that's gone into the use and take-up of the LMS. And finally, to conclude then, some sort of 10 conclusions for leveraging e-learning for TPD. First of all, yeah, it's important to consider which technology is most appropriate to support teacher reflection and peer learning. It's really important to pilot, evaluate, and iterate any new technology that might be used before a large-scale rollout. Critical to consider teachers' needs, well-being, motivation, and agency. It's important to co-design TPD with teachers to ensure it's contextualized and relevant for their needs. Yeah, it's really important to consider how large-scale interventions will reach teachers, for example, in those rural areas without reliable access to devices or connectivity. And in relation to that, we need to focus on the needs of these marginalized groups. So things like the rural-urban divide and focus on gender-responsive, digital and disability-aware strategies. Thinking about the system level, it's important to coordinate stakeholders and promote collaboration between, for example, different government departments involved in TPD implementation. Yeah, design for sustainability and through local contextualization. So, in terms of sustainability, it's important to really understand and follow up with teachers. So, initially, and then after a year or 2 years to understand whether the TPD is still relevant to their needs. Blended models have been really effective in Tanzania and globally to support the human element, the human relationship within TPD and support cost effectiveness. And finally, it's critical to ensure technology-enabled TPD is linked to tangible impacts in the classroom. So changes in teaching practices and student learning. And we need to measure these impacts systematically and rigorously. So yeah, you'll see a poll come up there. I'd be really interested to see which of these conclusions resonates with you most in relation to what's most appropriate and relevant for your context. Thanks very much. That's all from me. And the final slide just links to our project webpage. You can scan the QR code and see all the relevant outputs, research articles, reports, policy briefs that we've developed in relation to this work.
Thank you so much, Salim. So while you're answering, if you could see there's a poll popping up on your screen, and please choose which one is the most appropriate or relevant in your context. And during the Q&A session, Salim will take us deeper into analyzing this data. So I'll keep the poll open for now while I'm introducing our last speaker. Then last but not the least is my dear colleague, Dr. Temujin. As some of you know that at ICPA, we have e-learning platform as well, and we develop courses for teachers, such as for gender-responsive pedagogies, for safe learning environment, as well as for digital competencies. And now I'm inviting our expert on this, Dr. Temujin, to take us through the e-learning opportunities we developed at ICPA. Can you see my screen, Dr. Temujin?
Yes, thank you, Camelia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon and good morning to all of you, wherever you are. My name is Temujin and ICPA's program officer and former instructor at Addis Ababa University. Probably, Camelia, the previous page, the first page. Yes, ICPA's virtual campus, which Camelia has already mentioned, is available at this site, and all our courses are uploaded on that one. They are available for free, and you don't need to pay anything. And please register to the site, and you can access anything that's available there. Next slide. Yeah, by way of introduction, e-learning content development is conceptualized as a process of creating digital educational materials that are accessible, interactive, and pedagogically sound. So, sorry, it's not just the availability of the material, but also the pedagogical aspects are very important, and it should be interactive. The spectrum of our courses are They could be PDF, they could be PowerPoint, recorded lectures, interactives, which involves quizzes, drag and drop activities, branching scenarios, and also immersive AR and VR. Now, we have not yet been to that level, but we are somewhere at the middle, and I will explain all these things. Next slide. So what kind of authoring tool are you using for development? Of course, the authoring tools could be Canva, Google Slides, Microsoft Sway, and the pro one is Articulate 360, Adobe Captivate, and iSpring Suite. ICBA courses are mostly done by iSpring. But when we hire consultants to do course development, one of them has used Articulate 360. And UNESCO ICBA uses iSpring Suite Max and the authoring tool as the authoring tool. And our platform is Moodle based. And we also recently used a translation tool called SmartCat AI, which translates all the contents as well as keeping the templates into various languages. Next. Next, yeah. UNESCO ICBA digital competency courses are, contextually relevant, which means that we try to take into account the African context, the internet challenges, etc., connectivity challenges, and so forth, and practitioner focused, not very much theoretical, but it is for teachers. And in fact, our motto is empowering teachers for all learners to thrive. And flexible and interactive learning, meaning the courses are optimized to be interactive and multimedia lessons using AI-powered authoring tools and manually, mainly available online for free as a self-paced learning format, meaning there will be no tutor, no facilitator behind the courses, but we can accept support requests through email and uploaded to ICBA's virtual campus, and we usually convert them into SCORM files that can be accessible in various formats, in various browsers. Next. Who are these courses for? As you can see here on the right side, we have digital competence as one category. We have mental health and psychosocial support. We have the FAWE, UNICEF, and ICBA course on gender responsive pedagogy. We have also teachers preventing violence in Africa. So they are meant for teacher educators and TVET instructors. And they are also meant for practicing teachers, primary and secondary, and education policy makers and planners, school leaders and principals. We do all this, we involve all this, if teachers and teacher educators are trained and the principals, the school leaders are not convinced in all those areas, then the capacity development or enhancement effort that happens or that is being placed on the teachers would be useless, cannot be implemented. So in all our courses, upon successful completion, meaning we defined successful completion as 80% response of each course, and participants will receive or will generate their certificates. In fact, in each of the units or the chapters that a course consists, there are quizzes. The quizzes are based on iSpring Suite's formats, and there are 14 different kinds of quizzes: multiple choice, marking, true, false, etc. So as much as possible, we vary those kinds of things because we believe that each of these quizzes test the different kinds of skills and knowledge. Plus, in all of the quizzes in between the courses, we provide feedback both for the correct answer and the incorrect answer, because our philosophy on assessment is assessment for learning, meaning immediate feedback. It is not for summative or grading purposes. Next. So now the ICBA courses. We have apart from the other courses, the digital courses, currently we have 6. The first one is Digital Competence 01, Basic Digital Skills for Teachers. This one has 6 units. The what and why of digital skills, basic productivity tools. We focus on PowerPoint, search the web in an effective and efficient manner, use of open educational resources for teaching and learning, use of social media for teaching and learning, and cyber security in teaching and learning. In all of these, we have quizzes, we have final exams, etc., etc., and interactive lessons, and sometimes role plays, etc., are involved. Next. Next slide. The second course is using free software for interactive teaching. So it's a sequence of courses. First, teachers will take the basic digital skills because we know that the digital competence of teachers is very much different from country to country, from region to region, from one locality to the other. So, and then we go to the use of free software. Why free software? Because for cost reason, for budgetary limitations reasons, if we propose or recommend proprietary resources, it might not be feasible in the African context. So this course, creating and editing digital audio content. How do teachers create audio content and reach out to students who are far from their base? And creating and editing digital video content. And the third one is creating and editing engaging visuals like lesson plans, lesson designs, etc., etc., and embrace game-based learning. In each of these 4 units, we use free software that can be downloaded and implemented, and hopefully teachers will get familiar with these self-paced courses. Next course. Now, the third course is effective teaching through TV and radio. We know that TV and radio have been mostly in one-way channel, but in this course, we established or we developed mechanisms of making TV and radio interactive through the use of various tools. The first module, understanding TV and radio-based distance learning. Each of the modules have 2 units. And the second module is designing and facilitating TV and radio-based distance learning. One rationale for this is that in Africa and all over the world, TV and radio are abundant. But teachers have not been using those kinds of things. So if broadcast companies, be it private or public, give, say, for instance, 1 hour or 30 minutes per week, the teachers can use those kinds of media, traditional media, so to say, in an effective and efficient way. And the third module is how to organize and monitor TV and radio-based learning. And the fourth module, we introduce assessment for TV and radio-based learning. And finally, we introduce collaborative approach and planning. Next. The fourth course, Digital Competence 04, is on instructional design. Why do we include instructional design for teachers? Traditionally teachers are, users of content developed by others, by curriculum developers, etc., etc. But we feel that if teachers are empowered, capacitated to develop at least supplementary materials for these courses, they need to know instructional design principles. And in this particular course, we introduce various models, but we stick to the ADDIE model: analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation model. And each of these components are described with specific examples for teachers to develop. They should analyze their learners, they should analyze the tasks, they should design the blueprint, they should develop the actual content, and they test it in their classrooms, and finally get feedback from their own students. Next. Yes, all the 4 courses will lead to the e-learning content development. So teachers are instructional designers and also content developers. In the traditional sense, They might develop lessons from the textbooks they have received from central or regional. But here, we empower them to be content developers, at least through the use of free software. So the what and why of e-learning, and how to motivate and engage learners in the e-learning environment. These strategies are described there. What are the principles of multimedia learning? When a teacher is creating, or an instructional designer is creating, or content developer is creating content for e-learning, what are the principles of multimedia learning? Do you make the courses full of text, full of PDF, full of video? So the principles should guide those kinds of development, and integrating instructional content and games. Games by themselves and gamification could be okay, but there is a need for teachers to know how to integrate those instructional content with games. And simulation as teaching learning strategies, there are many simulations, but we wish the teachers are also capable of developing their own small simulations for teaching and learning. And we can learn a lot from storytelling and case-based scenarios in e-learning. So what kind of mechanisms teachers can use in incorporating storytelling and case-based scenario in e-learning. And the sixth one, the sixth one is e-assessment. This one interrelated to the fifth one, the e-learning content development, and the assessment cannot be outside. But assessment has transformed itself very much. The traditional assessment, the what and why of assessment, and then the history of technology enhanced assessment from the 1960s up to present. Where are we going? The second unit will describe and illustrate where we had been, you can say, and where we are moving at different phases. And what kind of tools do we have for e-assessment? And assessment using e-portfolios. The portfolios, we have been using many portfolios, paper-based, and also maybe other productivity tools-based. But in e-portfolios, what can we do? Scenario-based assessment, when we assess, we have been asking questions, what is this, what is that, and what will happen, etc., which are good by themselves, but we convert now the assessment into a scenario-based, African-based scenarios, and then assessment questions, and finally using rubrics in e-assessment. So this course has 6 units. Next. So
Temujin,
from
can you
the
please
previous,
wrap up in 2 minutes, please?
even less than 2 minutes. Edge computing systems. Many have, the previous speakers have talked about internet connectivity, etc., etc. So we, with the support of the Japanese government, ICBA has introduced what we call edge computing systems. This is enhancing learning through localized technology. There is a cloud over there, but the edge computing system is coming in between, and it provides local server, and offline access is also there. But right now, I am outside of Addis Ababa, in a regional town, providing training for master teachers on these kinds of things. So local data processing, educational efficiency, supports for real-time application, and enhanced system reliability will be there. The last slide. Next slide. Yeah, in summary, we have to design learner-centered instruction through assessment, using assessment, and the next generation of courses, ECVAS courses, are here beyond pedagogy, mastering heutagogy and reflective practice for educators, which we have gone a little more than 60%, and TPAC and virtual lab for teachers. This is also already started, and introduction to AI competence for teachers and generative AI for teachers. We hope we will also introduce micro-learning and nano-learning for teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Temujin. today we have very rich presentations from all our speakers, and I believe that we all have learned a lot from each country's experience, and I saw there's a lot of interest from participants on ICBA's platform, and we will share the link in the chat again so you can access. We will also share in the follow-up email once all the resources are made available. Now, I think we still have a little time for Q&A, and I saw there are a lot of great questions from participants for our speakers. So now I would like to hand over to my colleague Marianne to lead the Q&A session. And also we would like to do a little evaluation survey. I'll post that in the chat, and you can tell us about your feedback for our webinars and how we can improve your experience and what other topics you're interested in. Now over to you, Marianne.
Thank you so much, Camelia, and thank you everybody for your excellent presentations. We learned so much today. There were so many questions in the chat box and in the Q&A room that it was almost difficult to decide which ones to pose right now during this session. So I'll do the best I can to post them. However, if you as a speaker are able to see some of the questions in the chat box, please feel free to address them on your own in the chat box if we don't get to all the questions. So I think Dr. Christian Aday-Poku will go first. We had quite a few questions for you. I've tried to group them according to 3 categories and shorten them. So Dr. Christian, I'm going to ask you a few questions in 3 areas, and I would appreciate if you could try to address them all together. They might be overlapping in some way. So the first question group is about how your e-learning platform is accommodating certain populations of teachers. How does your platform accommodate or support teachers with disabilities and teachers in hard-to-reach areas? So those 2 groups of people, teachers with disabilities and those that are in hard-to-reach, maybe remote areas. So Dr. Christian, that's one question. And the other question is about teachers learning on the platform itself. So how do teachers learn with the platform? The question is, how do you monitor teachers learning on the platform in terms of their implementation? Does the e-learning platform have any way to find out if teachers are actually using what they learn on the platform when they go back to their classrooms? And is there a remedial strategy for teachers who don't get the concepts the first time? Is there a way for them to come back to the platform to keep learning more since they may not get it the first time around? So that's the second group of questions, and that's about teachers learning on the platform. And I hope it's okay to pose a third question, is that about the laptops that are provided for teachers in Ghana. Who funds the laptops, and can teachers take their laptops with them as they move from school to school? So Dr. Christian, I hope you're able to hear the questions. I'm able to repeat them if you need to. Those are the 3 groups of questions. Would you like to take about 5 minutes to answer them? Dr. Christian, are you still with us?
I think he has dropped off.
Yeah, I don't see him now. So let's move on to another question. I would like to pose a question to Professor Mohammed from Nigeria. The question is about, do you have data of any persons with disabilities that have taken part in this project, and or your future plans to bring in teachers with disabilities into the initiatives in Nigeria? So Professor Mohammed Bashir Mwaza, or Mwazu, sorry, could you take that question? I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Yes,
What's the question?
yes.
Sorry.
It's about teachers with disabilities in Nigeria. Do you have any data on teachers with disabilities that have taken part in the project, and perhaps your future plans to integrate teachers with disabilities or other teachers with different conditions that might hinder their ability to take part?
Okay, yeah, so thank you. At the moment, we do not necessarily have something that is specific for teachers with disabilities, but it's one of those it's one of those things that we have on our agenda is to have at least one of those sessions that will deal with people with disabilities. So we're even thinking that part of the facilities we'll set up will be facilities that can accommodate people with and levels of disabilities, and even it's one of the things that we're scheduling to do this year to deal with issues of how to get across to teachers with disabilities. But so far, none of the programs we've run has particularly focused on people with disabilities.
Okay, and thank you, Professor. Maybe I can pose one more question to you if we have the time. So because you're speaking from the national level, there was a question about how can we develop policies and teacher training frameworks that enable a sustainable, equitable, and pedagogically meaningful integration of AI into African education systems, rather than it being temporary and technology-driven only. So a question about how can we develop policies and teacher training frameworks that enable sustainable, equitable, and pedagogically meaningful integration of AI into national systems rather than it just being temporary and technology driven only.
Yeah, so like I said during the presentation, and I think this is one of those big takeaways from the relationship we have with UNESCO Aiche, in the fact that we're building systems and not simply just building maybe just working on this one-off project. And so in 2024, when we started to shift from simply looking at digital capacity building into looking at how to institutionalize policies for AI adoption at national level rather than at institutional level. And so that's why we convened the national dialogue to discuss on a roadmap or a framework for institutionalizing AI at a national level into the Nigerian university system at that point. And so that draft report now was launched by the Nigerian National Universities Commission in Nigeria, and they set up another team which used that as a basis, and maybe with some other discussions around, and came up with a draft AI policy for use in the Nigerian university system. And I think this will form a basis upon which some of the other regulatory agencies for higher education, so like the National Commission for College Education, which is responsible for training of teachers, and then the National Board for Technical Education, I'm sure they will take a cue from that work that is being done by the National Universities Commission. And so we'll end up having a policy. And then, all this fit into the national AI strategy, which defines how this AI should be integrated into the Nigerian university system and inevitably into teacher professional development. So we're working at trying to ensure that there's a national policy that goes teacher or staff professional depth in universities or somebody that we're looking at a policy in the educational system.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much, Professor Mohammed, for that. I know time is very quickly going. I'd like to ask Salim Kumar, Mr. Salim Kumar, if he would like to reflect on the poll results from the poll that he just shared. I think that they're interesting. I'm seeing them as well. Would you like to take just 1 minute to briefly reflect on what you're taking away from the poll and maybe from the broader discussion?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Marianne. I think thanks to the 92 of you who responded to the poll regarding the conclusions from my presentation that most resonated with you. Yeah, we can see here that 19 of you voted for the focus on teachers' needs, well-being, motivation, and agency, being critical for your respective contexts. I think that makes absolute sense. But particularly sort of post-COVID, there's a real focus now on well-being of teachers, given the overloaded work and responsibilities that teachers face. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see that one voted for the most, and then we have 15 votes for the focus on marginalized teachers and students. So those from rural areas, female teachers, teachers with disabilities, and that's been a large focus of the discussion today as well in terms of the Q&A. So yeah, really interesting results here, and thanks to those of you for taking part in the poll.
Salim, thanks for that. And I am also encouraged to see so many votes for teachers' needs, well-being, motivation, professional agency, and it reflects on what Dr. Shafika shared earlier today, how we need to humanize the teacher. I think we just have one more minute for Q&A. We had many questions for Dr. Christian. So Dr. Christian, are you able to take one question before we go? I think you're back. Dr. Christian, can you hear me? Dr. Christian Adayapoko, are you able to hear me? I see that you're back online. I see you. You're on mute though. Are you able to take a question?
All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
The system was not permitting me to unmute. Please, I'm
technology
ready
is
to take
the
a question.
theme of
I'm
the
sorry.
day. No problem. Thank you. So we have many questions for you, and we won't get time to address all of them, but maybe you could just take one right now, and then if you could maybe answer one or two more in the chat box if possible. But many questions. One that I would like to ask you is about teachers learning on the platform. There were some questions about whether or not there's any way on the e-learning platform to assess whether teachers have implemented what they have used, what they've learned, so if they've implemented in their own classrooms, and if they get another chance to come back and relearn any concepts that they either didn't understand the first time on the platform or that they need to refresh again later after some time has passed.
Honestly speaking, it's a challenge that we are facing as at now, I must admit. We designed what we call portfolio for teachers. To assess that portfolio, that will help us to know whether the teachers are integrating what they are learning in their teaching, because it will reflect in their lesson notes, the artifacts, and so on that they will prepare for their lessons. We designed the rubrics and we piloted. When we piloted, we realized that it's costly to go around the country and assess the portfolio. So we decided that, okay, we will do e-portfolio, where teachers will upload whatever they have on online for us to assess. But that also became a challenge because, one, it costs the teachers a lot, especially when they are uploading videos, audios, and so on and so forth. It costs a lot. And two, storage capacity of NTC system to be able to accommodate all the artifacts that will be coming from about 450,000 teachers across the country is also a challenge. So we are still working with government to see how we can get funding so that we'll go to the initial step of moving around the country to do assessment to see how it goes. Even if it means we have to sample a group and find out and probably try to scale it up later, we will do it. But for now, that is the strategy we are going to adopt. The initial one that we did, it was clear that teachers were integrating, and where they had challenges, we proposed that some of the challenges should be tackled during professional learning community programs in the schools. So these were recommended, but we could not scale it up because of the cost involved.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christian. I know that there are hands up, and I know that we have more questions to address. I'm very sorry the time is quickly going. Dr. Christian, Christian, I have one question in the chat box that I'm posting for you because 3 people asked it, and I do want to ask it at least in the chat box. So it's about inclusion of teachers with disabilities and those that are in hard to reach places. So I'm just going to post that question in the chat box for you, Dr. Christian, if you could maybe just type your response to my question. I know we have to move on from the Q&A. All
right.
That's all. Yes, Camelia, back to you. Sorry, everyone, for the rushed Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marianne. Yes, I guess we need much more time today as we have very interesting presentations and very engaged audience for the session. However, it's been 2 hours and I know that everyone has a tight schedule. So I would like to invite one of our participant representatives, Dr. Petros Malakou, who's the senior education expert from the Ministry of Education of Ethiopia, also our KICS focal point for Ethiopia. He will reflect on his experience and his thoughts from this session. Dr. Malakou? Petros, are you able to? Petros? In the meantime, we did post the survey link. If you could kindly give us your thoughts about the session, that would be very helpful. Petros, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a great pleasure for me to be given this opportunity to reflect on the webinar today, which is on leveraging e-learning for teacher professional development. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
So thank you very much. We learned a lot from distinguished speakers, and I'm very happy that I'm also a closing remark speaker invited by UNESCO ECBA. So this is a good opportunity for education in Africa, that we use e-learning for teacher professional development journeys. So today we have explored the transformative potential of leveraging on e-learning for teacher professional development, including my country. So I would like to thank everybody, GP KICS, African and Hub, and UNESCO ECBA for organizing this platform and all the collaborators in this journey. So today, I personally feel that we learned a lot of things, starting from visionary leadership that we heard from a keynote speech by Dr. Shefika, which reminds us that technology and AI in education is not just a tool, it's beyond that. A catalyst for lifelong learning opportunities for the African teachers. And then, of course, from the national success stories in digital transformation, we have also learned a lot, including my country. So the national success stories shared so this session provides a practical roadmap for digital transformation across the continent. So this is a great opportunity for us to learn from the platform. The Ghanaian experience, for example, with developing e-learning platform for their continuous professional development, that highlights the vital importance of institutionalizing digital roles within national framework is a lot to teach us. We have also in Ethiopia trying to use technology for our CPD to the 800 teachers that we have in the system in this country. Similarly, the Nigerian experience also has a lot that we learn from, because it focuses on digital transformation for teachers, professional development, which is similar in context through distance learning. And with this, I believe it demonstrates how technology can effectively bridge the geographic gaps to reach educators everywhere, wherever they are in this continent. So this is also the other important story that Ethiopia learns from, other countries learn from. And finally, the Tanzanian case study on electronic learning management system, complemented by UNESCO ECBA, which I am also part of this journey, of course, works in developing specialized e-learning platforms, courses. We are working with UNESCO but to reach out to all the teachers, especially in conflict-affected areas in Ethiopia. So this is a great thing and a lot to teach the other Africans who didn't test technology for teacher development journeys in Africa. So this is a good opportunity. This platform is teaching us a lot. This all serves as a powerful reminder that digital content must be high quality and contextually relevant to really strengthen the teacher capacity. So by bringing everything into the context of each countries, we can use technology to enhance teacher capacity building, where we consider teachers as the center of the education system, where the quality of education system highly depends on the performance of the teachers. So technology is becoming a good capacity to help us enhance the professional competence of teachers wherever they are, as it allows individualized learning and equity issues. Technology is something that we strongly need to work on to use for teacher education and capacity building programs. Particularly the initiative that we have in Ethiopia in relation to CPD is to make it school-based, because their studies, their capacity building initiatives, we believe need to start from the context and the school, so that it will solve the practical problems of teachers, and then technology in this regard will help for professional discourses and network formations. So I'm very happy today to participate in this platform. We are also working on motivating teachers in the system through different programs other than the established structured CPD. So of the different modalities and approaches we are using, technology is one, and we are benefiting a lot. Saying this, I'm very delighted to be part of this journey. And the vibrant question answer session is also something that helps us a lot, moderated by Mariam. There is a deep hunger, I understand, for these innovations within the community in the 19 African Hub. So as a focal point for Ethiopia, I'm very encouraged to see how these shared rigorous regional experiences can inform our own national strategies for teacher professional development, which are some of the initiatives are in place that demand us the use of technology to be implemented in enhanced scale. So digital transformation is no longer a luxury, I believe. It is a necessity for ensuring that every
Petros? I cannot hear Dr. Petros anymore.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, now,
Yeah,
yes.
digitally literate educators. So finally, I want to thank everybody, Dr. Thomas Brewer for the opening remarks, and to all speakers for their experiences, expertise shared, most importantly, the participants of this engagement for their reflection, participation, and for the takeaways. So let us carry these lessons forward to our own context to ensure the lifelong learning becomes a reality for every teacher in Africa. Saying this, I now want to hand over the floor to back to Camelia for the final wrap up. I'm very proud to be part of this and for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your attention, Petros. do believe that the experience from Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, and also from ICBA has really strengthened our understanding of e-learning opportunities for TPD. So thank you everybody for staying with us throughout the session. I hope this has been very informative for you as well. We have dropped in the chat a few useful resources for you provided by ICBA, such as the Africa Education Knowledge Platform that hosts relevant documents for education in Africa. Also, I saw a lot of questions about the presentations and recordings. They will be made available after the session, and we'll send an email to all of our participants once that's available, along with other useful resources. Our next session, the last session of this unit, will be on defining and measuring digital and AI competencies. That will happen on April 23rd. So I hope that you can attend as well. For some of you, all participants that have attended all 3 sessions in a unit will receive a certificate of participation. And that's all. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
God bless.
So much. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you
Merci
very
beaucoup.
much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, I love this kind of discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
everyone.
very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
For the next